Right. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Harbours Committee here on the 17th of March. We are obviously online during the pandemic, so the meeting will run. I would ask members, if possible, if they want to ask questions, to use the chat bar and please put in RTS. If you don't have that available, if you can use the hand signal, and we'll try to keep a record of that. And I think if everyone mutes, other than if you're about to speak, and possibly with the videos off so we get better signal, I think that will be helpful. I'm going to do a roll call to start with. And we have a new member of the new independent member is here who hasn't met. He's met one or two of us, but so if everyone could give a little bit of an introduction, I'll go round. I'm Mark Roberts. I chair the committee. I'm an elected member. My ward is the coastal. It's called Chesilbank. It's the coastal villages between two of our harbours. Really, it's between West Bay and Fleet, so the Weymouth end. Right, Rob Hughes.
Yes, good morning, everybody. Sorry there's no video from me this morning. I'm having a few issues with technology, but you can hear me all, I hope. It's Councillor Rob Hughes for Ward of Portland, Vice Chairman of the Harbours Committee. I'm glad to be here. We're sitting on that lump of rock in between the harbours that we have, but otherwise it would be straight access to all of them. We're in the way.
Thank you, Rob. Right, I'm not sure if Louis is here yet. Okay, Mary Penfold.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mary Penfold, and I'm the present chairman of SCOPAC, which is Standing Conference on Problems Associated with the Coastline, and that's mainly research. And I've been involved in coastal issues for many years as a councillor.
Thank you, Mary. Sarah Williams, are you with us now? No, Sarah's an elected member for Britain. Councillor David Gray.
Good morning, Chair. Councillor David Gray, Dorset Councillor for Radipole in Weymouth, and also a Weymouth Town Councillor. And I'm a resident of Weymouth. Thank you.
Thank you. And now our independent members. Steve Pittman.
Yes, good morning to you all. Yeah, Steve, I'm a member of Weymouth Sailing Club, very much a member of the local community in Weymouth. Know Andy Sargent very well. Had some discussions recently with him, so I'm sure there'll be some very interesting conversations later on.
Thank you. Jim Clark.
Hello, I share a video camera with Rob Hughes, I'm afraid, so apologies for that. I'm an independent member. I'm a former regional director of the Sports Council in this region, and for the last 10 years I was self-employed with my own business before retiring last year. I live in Bridport.
Thank you, Jim. Lee Hardy.
Good morning, Lee Hardy. I'm an independent member based in Wimborne, actually. I'm in my first year on this committee, and I have a military background, an operational career focused on marine and maritime matters.
Thank you, Lee. And our new independent member, William Elwood, or Will, I think you like to be called.
Yeah, morning, everybody. So my name's Will, and I'm the new boy on the block, having just joined the committee as a co-opted member. Bit of a background, I've worked in the marine industry all my life, at sea commercially and shore-based abroad. Spent the last 15 years Dorset-based. I live up near Puddletown. Work as a marine assessor around the southwest and Channel Islands. Got a young family, frequent the harbours and surrounding areas quite a lot, and sort of hoping to use my experience to help push the harbours in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now I'd like to welcome William Heaps, our designated person for marine safety.
Good morning, Chair. Thank you. Yes, so I'm the designated person under the Port Marine Safety Code with responsibility for reassuring your committee that the harbours are run in compliance with the Port Marine Safety Code, and I'm looking forward to reporting to you later.
Thank you. Ken Buchan.
Thank you, Chair. Ken Buchan, I'm the Head of Environment and Wellbeing at Dorset Council. Harbours sit within the service area along with Coast and Green Space and Leisure Services. I also noticed, Chair, that Councillor Bryan had joined the meeting as well.
Right, thank you. I will. Councillor Ray Bryan, Cabinet Member for Place, which includes the harbours. Would you like to say hello?
Yes, good morning, everybody. Sorry, I'm a couple of minutes late due to technical problems, which is normal. I'm Councillor Ray Bryan. I hold the portfolio, as Mark has already said, for highways, travel and environment, and under the environmental banner comes obviously harbours.
And sorry, I was remiss of me not to welcome Councillor Knock Lacey Clark.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, my name is Councillor Knock Lacey Clark, and I am a lead member working under Ray Bryan and his portfolio. And I also wish to let you know that Councillor Leary is trying to join us, but has some really bad connectivity problems currently.
Thank you, and I hope they're sorted shortly. We'll continue now. We welcome our Harbour Masters, Jamie Joyce.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, everybody. Jamie Joyce, Weymouth Harbour Master.
James Radcliffe.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, James Radcliffe, Harbour Master for Bridport and Lyme Regis Harbours.
I think I saw Louis O'Leary. I'll come back to him in a minute when he's... Oh, good morning, Louis. We're just introducing ourselves. If you'd like to give a quick introduction.
What now?
Yes, please.
Councillor Louis O'Leary, Councillor for Littlemore and Preston, and a member of the Harbours Committee.
Thank you, Louis.
Thank you.
Matthew Penny. Are you there, Matt?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Matthew Penny, Engineering Projects Manager in the Flood and Coastal Erosion Risk Management team at the Council.
Thank you. Claire Connolly.
Yeah, morning everyone. I'm Claire Connolly. I'm the Finance and Admin Manager for Weymouth Harbour.
And then we have Denise Hunter, Democratic Services.
Morning everyone. Yes, I'm Denise Hunt, and I help support the committee from the Democratic Services side.
And this morning we also have Lara Altree, Legal Services Manager.
Good morning, Chairman. I'm Laura Altree. I'm a solicitor with Dorset Council.
Thank you. And Kelly Matthews, Health and Safety.
Yes, good morning. Yeah, I'm a health and safety consultant for Dorset Council, relatively new to the team, but I've been visiting the harbours with our team since November.
Thank you, Kelly. We will be joined by Mark Osborne. He's left a note to say he'll be joining at 11. He will be presenting. We have a little item later on that he will be presenting. That's Mark Osborne, Estate Surveying Manager. Okay, I think I've included everybody, so hopefully a very warm welcome. We will have a comfort break. I'll find a suitable break between items around, I hope, about 11:15 to have a quick break, so don't panic. So our first item on the agenda is apologies. Denise, do we have any apologies?
Chairman, I've received an apology from Karen Punchard. I've just noticed that Councillor Sarah Williams has been able to join the meeting, so I just wanted to let you know that.
Oh, thank you. Right, Sarah, are you with us?
Hello, Mark. Yes, I am. Sorry, apologies. I had IT issues this morning.
Okay. We have a new member of the committee. If you'd just like to introduce yourself.
Hello, yeah, I'm Councillor Sarah Williams. I'm ward member for Bridport.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Right, the next item on the agenda is the minutes. Are members of the committee content with the minutes of the previous meeting?
Yes, happy with the minutes of the previous meeting, Chair.
Are there any comments or points that any committee member would like to raise about the minutes, or are we happy to move on? Right, I'll take that we're happy to move on. Are there any declarations of interest that any members wish to make?
Yes, myself, if I could please. It's Steve Pittman, member of Weymouth Sailing Club.
As chairman, I will declare an interest that I'm on the waiting list for a mooring for West Bay Harbour. I will declare it when I get one. Thank you. No other declaration of interest. Right, we now move on to item 4, which is public participation, and public speaking has been suspended for virtual committee meetings during the COVID crisis. So public participation is being dealt with through written submissions unless it is from a Dorset Council member. So we now, I think, have a question or two or a statement, and Ken Buchan will read out the representation and Denise Hunt will read the response.
Okay, thank you, Chair. The first statement and request is from Rob Wiscombe, the Commodore at Lyme Regis Sailing Club. Lyme Sailing Club has had its launch storage fees increased by 76% and 84% respectively, as opposed to the general increase to other harbour users of 3%. Lyme Regis Powerboat Club has been charged a 28% increase. Your December minutes record the budgets, fees and charges for 2021-22 for Bridport and Lyme Regis Harbours were recommended for approval to full council. We understand the council intends to standardise discounts to its harbour user groups across the county. We don't understand why. It removes any encouragement or incentives for clubs such as ours, which provide outstandingly positive health, environmental and social benefits to our local community. We appreciate that Dorset Council is under considerable financial pressure and that West Bay Lyme Regis Harbours make a loss. So we question why charges for other harbour users were only increased by a general 3 to 5%. Dorset Council appears to be failing to support local organisations in favour of visitors. Mark Roberts states in his letter that Lyme Regis Sailing Club fees have remained reasonably static and comparably low for some time. We contest the assertion that our fees have remained reasonably static, as they have increased by more than double the percentage of other harbour users from 2013 to 2020. We agree our fees are comparatively low. The rates originally negotiated with West Dorset District Council in 2009 reflect our special relationship with the harbour and the benefits from our contribution to youth training, physical and mental fitness. The environmental impact of sailing is minimal, and we support the local economy by providing employment. Lyme Regis Sailing Club has always worked to keep sailing costs affordable to avoid elitism. So increasing our charges make it difficult for us to remain inclusive. The membership profile of Lyme Regis Sailing Club reflects the demographics of the local area. The main cohorts are young working families with youth in our training scheme and retired members on fixed incomes. We do of course realise that the council is under considerable financial pressure, as are many of our members after the double hammer blows of Brexit and COVID. So raising sailing costs will result in some members giving up the sport. We request that the proposed percentage increase is significantly reduced to be in line with other harbour users and allow the club to continue benefiting the community. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Denise, I think you're going to read out the response to that.
Yes, Chairman. So the response is, thank you for your statement and request. The Harbours Committee are aware of and support the excellent work and opportunities that all clubs associated with our harbours provide for our young people and the wider community. It is important to understand the context of the fee changes for the coming years, as the percentage increases outlined in your statement are not only proposed over a 4-year period, but also start from a very low base. The sailing club will continue to pay around a quarter of that of an equivalent visiting boat. For example, a visitor or non-sailing club member will pay £97 per metre or £388 for a typical 4-metre boat for 6 months storage, and £110 for the season for launching, or £11 each launch. A sailing club member for the coming year will pay £75 per boat, not per metre, for storage, and for 6 months, and £50 for the season for launching, or £5 for each launch. It is currently proposed that in 4 years' time this will increase to £97 and £88 respectively. Charges for the sailing club have remained comparatively low and will continue to do so. Fees and charges for visitors to the harbour are significantly higher than those of the sailing club, hence the lower percentage increase, which in monetary terms is similar to that of the sailing club. Fees and charges are benchmarked with other South Coast harbours to ensure we remain competitive. The committee wishes to support clubs and charities and recognise them as a key component of the harbour community, and it is not the intention to put them under any additional financial strain. The small increase of £2.50 per month for storage and no change to launch fees this coming year, coupled with the proposed gradual increase in fees over 4 years, recognises this. However, we have agreed to review proposed fees and charges with the Sailing Club at the end of each summer, so we can understand if increased charges are impacting on club membership. That's the end of the response, Chairman.
Thank you for that very comprehensive response. And now I believe that we have a question from Councillor Kate Weller, who will, I believe, read out her own question. Kate.
Thank you very much. Good morning, committee. Good morning, Chairman. Thank you for allowing me to speak this morning. My 2 questions are these. I've read the results of the initial consultation on a new harbour strategy for Dorset Council. They do not tell us anything very much new, but serve to usefully inform the ongoing process. Could you tell me the schedule for proceeding, and is the committee on target to complete the strategy as they had hoped? That's my first question. I'll ask my second one and then you can respond as and when. The next topic I brought forward a number of times in the past, but with limited response. No one suggests that sea bins and other devices will solve the problem of pollution in our oceans. However, there is evidence that they could help in harbours and marinas. Currently in Weymouth, there are a few wonderful people who collect litter at low water from around the Stone Pier steps and other locations, as far as it's safe to do so. And I know the harbour staff also collect litter when time restraints allow. Litter, plastic bottles, food cartons, cigarette ends, etc. also collect by the town bridge and the North Quay bend where it joins with Westway Road. Whilst ultimately it is a matter of education and the reduction of single-use plastic, a sea bin or similar could help keep these areas and similar areas in West Bay and Lime Bay cleaner. Could I ask the harbour masters and the committee to do some research into these devices and perhaps set aside a budget to provide them in the locations where they would perhaps be of more use? Thank you.
Thank you for 2 very good questions. Can we have the responses, please, Denise?
Thank you, Chairman. The response to the first question is work on the harbour strategy is progressing a little slower than anticipated just over a year ago, prior to the start of the COVID pandemic, impacting on the UK. A subgroup of the committee have been considering the 500 plus responses received from the initial consultation exercise and have, with the assistance of the Dorset Coast Forum, developed some draft strategic goals, a vision and a mission statement. These are currently out for consultation with key stakeholders and harbour users through the harbour's consultative groups. The next step is to rework the strategic goals based on consultation responses. We would anticipate further targeted consultation with harbour users with the intention of considering a draft Harbours strategy at the next Harbours Committee meeting in June. Should committee members agree, the strategy will go out to public consultation following this. Ultimately, we are seeking to consider the final Harbours strategy in September.
Thank you.
In response to the second question, all three harbours have teamed up with Odyssey Recycling to take part in both the Marine Regeneration Scheme, targeting marine litter, and the Net Regeneration Scheme for end-of-life fishing equipment. The aim of this collaboration is to provide a waste management solution to the fishing industry's end-of-life gear and encourages fishermen to collect all types of abandoned, lost, or otherwise discarded fishing gear whilst out on their fishing expeditions with no negative consequences. All acceptable material from the harbour litter picks will be deposited in these receptacles, which will be located at the fish landing area. This collaboration is expected to commence in early April. Further to this, all three harbours have consulted with the Dorset Coast Forum and approved the installation of sea clean bins at the slipways. The aim of this project is to locate bins at popular angling spots, such as piers, quays and slipways, where unwanted line can be disposed of safely. It can then be recycled as fishing line continues to cause problems at landfill sites. That concludes the response, as Chairman.
Thank you very much, Denise. Kate, did you want to come back on any of that?
Yes, please, if I may, Chairman. I'm very pleased to hear the initiatives that the harbours are taking on fishing tackle and so on. And that's terrific. Really pleased. But what I was looking at was the sea bins that actually sit in the water and suck away plastic bottles and cigarette packets and those sorts of things. And those things won't be picked up by that. So if those could be looked at, I don't know how expensive they are. They appear to be quite effective. It may not be viable for us. I mean, the fishing waste is most important because it's very damaging to the environment, but so are plastic bottles. So if that could be looked at, I'd be pleased. If I could be sent a link to the consultation document that's been going out via the Harbour Consultative Group, I'd be very grateful because I haven't seen that. Thank you very much indeed, Chairman.
Thank you, Kate. I do know that Jamie Joyce, Harbour Master at Weymouth, knows about this topic quite well, about the waste collection and possibly an idea of the costings. So, Jamie, would you like to just come in on a quick word there?
Thank you, Chairman, and thanks, Kate. What we are looking at is those sea bins and consulting with our port waste management plan as well to see how they would fit into the scheme. The biggest criteria for us is being able to anchor those in 2-knot streams. So we're actually in talks with them to see how effective they would be in that environment, and we can get back to you with that information.
Thank you very much, Jamie. Thanks, Chairman.
Thank you, Jamie, for that bit of expert knowledge. I think that now concludes the public participation. So thank you for all the questions and responses, and delighted to welcome you here this morning, Kate. Now we move on to item 5.
Excuse me, Chair. It's Rob here. I can see a hand up, but I'm not sure whose hand it is.
It's mine, Mark. Sorry, it's Mary Penfold. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, it didn't come up clearly. It'd be easy if you could use the RTS, Mary. But yes, do you have a question? Sorry.
Right. It wasn't a question. I'm really sorry. In light of what Kate's just said, I think I need to declare a specific interest as SCOPAC, obviously with research and things that we're doing. I did mention it early, but I didn't put it as a declaration of interest. Thank you.
Thank you. Denise will add that your declaration with SCOPAC. Thank you for that. Okay, we'll move on to the Chairman's report now. This is really for me just to update you on one or two things. And firstly, of course, a very warm welcome to Will Elwood, who we look forward to his expert contributions to the Harbours Committee with his wealth of experience and as a harbour user. Will, in fact, and I and Jamie on the 2nd of February attended the Marine Port Safety webinar run by Associated British Ports, which was extremely worthwhile. And I do recommend this to all other harbour members who haven't yet taken part in this. And for members of the committee, if you wish to take, please contact Hayley Caves in Democratic Services, who will organise you for the next one as they happen regularly. On the 17th of February, I was invited to a webinar with the DEFRA Secretary of State, George Eustace, talking about the Fisheries Bill. He gave a brief introduction, and I think it was unfortunate he had to leave, and then most questions were fielded by a very senior DEFRA official who, whenever she was asked a slightly tricky question, declined to comment on the grounds that that was a political question and not a DEFRA question. So we didn't learn quite as much, and nor did the fishermen present. But that's, I guess, the way of the world. I'd also like to give a quick update on the Harbours strategy consultation. We did cover a little bit of it in response to Kate. So the sort of timelines on this, the initial consultation organised by Dorset Coast Forum attracted 530 responses. That was collated into a consultation report, and we then established a working subgroup of the Harbours Committee, which we've met twice and agreed drafts. And we felt it was very important then that to circulate that to the rest of the committee. But first in our consultation were the harbour consultative groups, because we felt that their input should come before the public consultation. So it's gone out to those, and we have had to extend the timeline a little bit on that to ensure that we get full responses. We've also, at the same time, our key stakeholders who we necessarily have to involve, such as the Environment Agency, the Southern IFCA, and the Marine Management Organisation, have also been sent the consultation for their comments. The strategy goals circulated with the consultation report enables their representatives to talk to their groups. It was to be a 3-week consultation ending on the 15th, but it's been extended for another week. And the next step is for the draft strategy to be written prior to the next committee meeting, at which the document will be signed off by the committee as a draft for then to go out to public consultation with any necessary amendments. In developing this draft, targeted consultation will continue where necessary, and the working subgroup will reconvene to consider its development. So that's really where we are with the harbour strategy. So that, I think, concludes my report, unless there's any questions on that. I can't see any questions at the moment. And now it gives me great pleasure to welcome Andy Sargent, who is the new chair of the Weymouth Harbour Consultative Group. Andy, would you like to introduce yourself and then present the minutes of the Weymouth Harbour Consultative Group?
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. I'm Andy Sargent. I'm recently appointed as chair of the Harbour Consultation Group, which I've sat on for 6 years. The normal term of reference is that members can serve up to 6 years and then stand down, but we've taken the chair's position. It's within the remit of the group for me to stay in that position for another 3 years, which I said I'm willing to do so. But should someone else want to take over as chair within that period, I've stated I will stand down. So a quick synopsis of our meeting, which was held on the 17th of February, which Councillor Roberts and several other councillors also attend. The Harbour Master, Jamie Joyce, opened the meeting as we had no chair or vice chair, having been disbanded. And the first 2 items on the agenda was the appointment of myself and Dave Caddy, who's got Kingfisher Marine, as vice chair. We then went through the minutes, which there were no items from the last meeting. Jamie gave us an update, of which after the update there were several questions fielded, which are were in the minutes there. Should you wish to have them elaborated, please ask, but I won't waste your time on going through them all. Several other matters were raised. One by Kathy Clayton, who represents the Inner Harbour mooring members, and it was regarding car parking and the possibility of using the new or the old council offices as car parking space for Inner Harbour mooring owners. Since that, there's been several other people I've spoken to, and another idea which wasn't on the minutes has come to light, which I haven't spoke to anyone about, which was the possibility of the old gasworks, with it being so heavily contaminated, it may be a good place to look at for car parking space for the Inner Harbour users. The next part that was raised was by Jamie Pullen, charter boat representatives, and Terry Studley, the fishermen's representatives, was regarding the state of their economies with post-Brexit and the COVID. Councillor Roberts did say he was going to take this up through to local MPs and see what anything could be done. But it was regarding the possible deferring of mooring costs, etc., associated with the harbour, and any help that was possible for them to get over this COVID crisis, and with the fishermen, especially the shellfish. Most of the markets ceased to exist come Brexit, so they were stuck with all their fish not being able, or their shellfish not being able to be sold across the channel as they usually do. So they were looking at any help possibly to be given to them in financially. And that, Chair, was the quick appraise of the minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy, and welcome to the meeting. I would like to highlight one bit out of the minutes there, the award of the Maritime Fund to put additional electricity and lighting, and I think that was a great success from Jamie Joyce and his team in a very rapid response and application for that grant. And just an update, I actually had a meeting with my MP, Chris Loader, the West Dorset MP, yesterday, and I raised this problem, both of what are called the additional restrictions grants, which is the grant that Jamie Pullen was saying wasn't adequate. And also, Chris Loader is working with a team of South West MPs looking at speeding up the process of shellfish purification with DEFRA, because he feels that DEFRA hasn't really acted rapidly enough or didn't anticipate the issues that Brexit would cause with the export. Although he did point out, of course, that his colleagues in Europe are saying that most of that market, like here, is restaurants, which are shut down at the moment. So that he does understand the issues, but he is working on it. Thank you. I see that Councillor Rob Hughes would like to ask a question.
Chair, if I may, I would just like to say that I was sitting in the background at the Harbours Consultative Group meeting, not taking part in it as such, thanks to your kind invitation to attend. And I would like to extend a warm welcome to Mary Harris as the chairman of the new Weymouth Harbours Watch community group, with support from our Harbour Masters team, with the objective of increasing safety, security within the harbour and the marina areas. And I'm sure she'll do an excellent job, and I wish her every success with this group. And I'd just like to say it was really pleasing to see that that was taking place. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. And I think we have moved towards a sort of a new way of working with the consultative groups, in that a member of the Harbours team is present to take the minutes. And I think you'll agree there's very comprehensive minutes have been presented by Andy in the pack you've got. And I hope that we continue this much sort of bigger involvement from the consultative groups. We are in the process of, as we've reported before, of setting up similar ones for Lyme Regis and for West Bay. That process is in order now. Has anyone else got any points they'd like to make, or are any questions of Andy?
I can't see anybody as yet, Chair.
No. Okay. Well, we now move on, I think, then to item 7. So thank you very much, Andy Sargent, and you're very welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, or I don't know, you may well be very busy, but thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thanks very much, Chair. Just one point, if I may, as well. We are looking with Mary, and our thanks was extended for a participation replacement for Mary and several other members that are coming up to their time served. And we will be looking to diverse out and trying to get as wide a spread within the remit of the Harbour Consultation Group as we can. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Okay, I think we now move on to item 7, which is, oh, I
So-
just see, yes, is that James Radcliffe?
Yeah.
Yes, James.
Yes, sorry, Mark. It was just really the Bridport and Lyme groups. As you just mentioned, they're in the process of setting them up, and we hope to have the new groups set up at both harbours by late April and early May. We did have some meetings with the groups on the old format. So we met with Lyme back in December and Bridport in January. And both groups had some good conversations around harbour operations and harbour works that are planned. And the minutes are there, should anybody have any questions.
Yes, thank you for that, Jamie. And I just will add, when on the consultation on the harbour strategy, because those groups aren't fully formed, we've sent the consultation out to all the people who attended the meetings who are likely to become part of the consultative groups there. And then, of course, we will be very pleased to receive at our formal harbours meeting a report from the chairs of each of those 2 consultative groups. But because the harbours are rather smaller, it is likely that we anticipate those groups will probably meet twice a year rather than 4 times a year like Weymouth. So we can expect probably to see the chairs doing reports twice a year, whereas Andy, I think, will continue to present 4 times a year. Thank you for that, James. Okay, we now move on to the item 7, the budget monitoring report. And firstly, it's Weymouth. And I think, Claire, are you presenting this?
Morning. Yep. Again, yes, it's me.
Good morning and welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Chair. So the Weymouth Harbour budget report is at Appendix 1A with the financial figures detailed at Appendix 1B. Currently, we are predicting a year-end favourable position of £203,000. This is an improving picture from the last budget report that we presented to you of about £48,000. Many of the key factors remain the same, and the most significant saving is on the asset management plan. Jamie's going to cover that in quite a lot of detail when he does his update, so I won't go into that now, and I'll just sort of spend a few minutes highlighting the main changes from the last reporting period to this one. So in paragraph 2, we talk about areas where we've had reduced income, all of which are just a direct result of the COVID restrictions, and pretty much remain unchanged, although there is a slight increase on our predictions for visiting yachts. So that was a nice surprise. The second part of that, where we talk about areas where income is up, and our occupancy rates, which again, the figures are within the report, are higher than they were last year. This is obviously really good news and inevitably has a really positive impact on the budget. So with regards to our marina berthing, we're expecting there to be a surplus on our budget expectations this year. Paragraph 3 is where we talk about our expenditure and all the variances against our expenditure which have been reported on before. I think the main change for this reporting period is that we've experienced some sickness leave and we've had to get some cover just to make sure that our operational requirements are met. So there's a slight increase in cost there. Additionally, we've got some further savings in rates. We've got some sort of continued backdated refunds, sorry, on various buildings, but we'll also see some further savings on rates in the future, as some buildings that attract rates at the ferry terminal are being demolished. So next year, hopefully, that will continue. And I think the sort of final point on our expenditure is our legal costs have increased a bit more than what we were expecting as we concluded the work on the HRO. And that's the main point. So in summary, our expected favourable position will be transferred into the reserves at the year end. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. I think Councillor Gray. David?
Yes, thank you, Chair. My question really is to do with reserves specifically, and strategic goal number 4 about balanced budgets. And I think I've asked this question before, but I've looked at my notes. It's to do with reserves, and we hear lots and lots about sea defences and what the investment going in there. I'm really interested in Weymouth Harbour and dredging. So over the next 10 years, will it need dredging, and are we establishing a reserve for that? Because there isn't anything in the accounts specifically for reserves for dredging, and I'm not sure. Karen Punchard did answer the question last time I asked it, but I don't see any discussion or any establishment of a reserve for dredging. Yeah. And so I'm really asking 2 questions. One is financial, and one is it going to need dredging? And secondly, how are we going to pay for that?
Yeah, I'll mention, Jamie wants to come in, I know, and he's much better placed to talk about the dredging than I am. But with regards to this balance of the reserve at the minute, in paragraph 3, and again, Jamie will talk about that later, we're saying about producing a more robust asset management plan, which will help us form the committed spend of the asset plan. But I think Jamie will be better placed to talk about the dredging, and I see he's got his hand up.
Yes. Thank you. A very good question, David. Jamie, would you like to come in on this one, please?
Yeah, thanks for that question, Councillor Gray. Yeah, certainly we are looking at dredging. I've been on the phone last couple of weeks with our hydrographer to actually establish a baseline. So what we are going to do is create a plan of how we are currently and how we were 5 years ago, and to produce a chart which will actually show us those differences. And then we've been in contact with a couple of contractors to work out the cost of that and to put a budget forward when we have our new asset management plan. So yes, we are planning to do that as soon as we have that information from the hydrographic unit.
Chair, can I come back with a secondary question?
Yes, of course.
Jamie, in your experience, do we need to dredge to maintain existing income, or is there a financial benefit to dredging? And I'm thinking, I'm not that experienced, but I'm thinking of larger boats or more moorings. Is there an offset to the capital investment in terms of more revenue coming in as a result of dredging that we can offset that against?
Yeah, certainly that's been our conversations with, particularly in a harbour area and around the area, of dredging back to 2 meters, or do we go to 2.5 and attract those larger vessels? And that's the harbour staff team here are working out how many of those vessels are currently on the waiting list, what their draft are, and what that would represent in income should we dredge to that level. So yes, we are looking at all of those factors.
Brilliant. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, David. I was actually going to ask that bit which you asked at the end, so thank you for that. That's very valuable contribution. Thank you. Does that complete the Weymouth monitoring report? I think it does. So if so, we'll now move on to Bridport and Lyme. So I think it's James.
Chair, I think, has Jamie put his hand up again, or is that an old hand, Jamie? It's an old hand.
Apologies, old hand.
Yeah, I thought it probably was. So if there's no further questions on Weymouth budget, we'll move to James Radcliffe, and I think you're starting with West Bay.
Yeah, Thank you, Chair. Start with Bridport. So the year-end prediction for Bridport is to be overspent by 35,000, and this is mainly due to the loss of income from the COVID effect and the additional outer harbour dredging cost. The predicted year-end for the harbour reserve is 25k. So this is made up of the expenditure is predicted to be overall adverse of 64k, and that's made up with a favourable employees budget, and that's down to the Harbour Masters post being shared between the two harbours. The premises is adverse and mainly down to additional costs from contract cleaning and Crown Estate rents, and the transport cost of mainly, which is partly fuel, which some of it needs to be transferred to Lyme, and then our supplies and services. So that's adverse, and that's mainly built up with the dredging cost. So the dredging cost for Bridport was expected to be 75k, but it came in at 117. So that's what's pushed us over. And there's been additional cost with the designated person from Maritime Marine, where we haven't got any budget for it at the present. So the income is expected to be 4,000 favourable, but there is a forecast loss within the income of 21k. This made up with the shop and the car parking made a good return, which makes up for the deficit that the launching and some of the overnight stays has dropped on. Then we got the no, there won't be any transfer to reserves for the dredging budget due to the dredging money already being spent doing the dredging. So that's for Bridport. Is there any questions on Bridport and carry on to Lyme? Or?
I can't see any specific questions at the moment, so carry on to Lyme, and there may be something at the end there.
Okay, so Lyme is predicted a 6k favourable year end, and the overall expenditure budget is 130k adverse. So this is made up again with a favourable employees due to the Harbour Master post being shared. The transport cost is favourable. There's been savings on fuel and down to events not happening and shortened season. And then the supplies and services is adverse, and that's mainly down to the dredging, but it is offset down below with income from a government grant. We also had the third-party payments from the EMFF grant, which is shown for the anchor system for the pontoons. So the income is 111,000 favourable, and that is made up of the government grant, as mentioned before, and better timetabling of staff, and has led to effective collection of harbour dues, resulting in increased returns. So again, for Lyme, we've used the dredging money for this year, so there won't be a movement to reserves.
Thank you, Jane. Could you just clarify, when you say the government grant, that's Environment Agency mostly towards the dredging, as well as something towards the anchoring, isn't it?
For Lyme Regis, yeah, it's beach management.
Yes.
Funding.
Yes, thank you. Are there any questions from members of the committee on those two financial or budget reports? Or...
I can't see anybody at the moment, Chair.
Right, we have a recommendation which is to note the budget monitoring figures for 2021. So is everybody happy that we just note these? If no one says anything, I'll take it that the committee are happy to note. Good. We note the recommendation. We now move on to item 8, the Port Marine Safety Code and Health and Safety Report, and we will start with the Designated Persons Report. So over to William Heaps.
Thank you, Chair. So I've submitted my report and I hope members have had a chance to read it. So I intend now just to give a very brief summary of the highlights, just for a couple of minutes. So this is my second report to the committee since being appointed as designated person in 2019, and it effectively covers the year ending at the end of last month, February 2021. It goes without saying the year was dominated by COVID and remote working, but I'm pleased to say that I've maintained really good communications with the Harbours team, and that's been very satisfying. So I'll just bring a few highlights of the report to your attention. On the legislation side of things, there's been no significant changes in national legislation, but I'm very pleased to note the introduction of the Weymouth Harbour Revision Order, which is really quite an achievement by yourselves and the Marine team. And I'm also very pleased to note the ongoing work in respect of Bridport and Lyme Regis. I've been very pleased to note the regular Harbour Master reports to the duty holder, your committee, and that port marine safety has been given due consideration amongst all the other challenges you're facing. So navigation safety is being given due attention, and I have to say that's not always the case with municipal committees, so well done to you all. I'll mention just at the end that the authority should confirm Port Marine Safety Code compliance to the MCA before the end of this month. I know Jamie and James will have that in hand, and I'll give you my recommendation when I wrap up in a couple of minutes' time. Operationally then, the harbour teams, as far as I've been able to tell, have been able to fulfil their obligations in respect of Port Marine Safety Code compliance, despite the really significant challenges of COVID, and of course a change of harbour master in the middle of the year. So Jamie has joined you and really hit the ground running, which has been great to see. Just some particular achievements to draw your attention. The new incident reporting system for Weymouth, since I last spoke to you, has been fully developed, is online and is live, and looks extremely good. Ongoing review of navigation risk assessment has been maintained despite COVID and the difficulty of working together. That's a fundamental requirement of code compliance, and it's been maintained. I'm particularly pleased to note that there's been the commencement of a full review of the marine safety management system, including updating of some key procedures, and there's a very clear intention to bring the 3 safety management systems for the 3 harbours together, which is absolute common sense and really welcomed. I've also noted the early development of general directions for Weymouth to replace some of the outdated bylaws. I know that's in hand, and that's been enabled by the introduction of the HRO. And the final point I was going to bring to your attention has been covered really quite nicely already, and that's the ongoing stakeholder consultation and engagement. And we've already heard just how effective that's been, despite COVID, despite remote working. I really commend that. That's another thing that some small harbours tend to find difficult. And particularly, I would draw members' attention to the really useful information that was put on the Weymouth website for port users regarding the COVID situation. It was been one of the best websites I've seen for as soon as a change has occurred, the information was out there and made available. Whether it's what your users wanted to hear or not is another matter, but it was very clear, and it was the fact at the time. So well done to the team that managed to keep that going. So I'll just summarise by the final paragraph of my report that you've received. I recommend that the duty holder, which is you as a Harbours Committee, should confirm to the MCA in a signed statement that the 3 Dorset harbours are compliant with the Port Marine Safety Code. And I think you can note that compliance is being supported by ongoing audit and improvements that you've been talking about today. So that's my report, Chair. Very happy to take any questions.
Thank you. That's a very welcome report, and thank you for your very encouraging words about the harbours and how we're progressing with marine safety.
Chair, Lee Harvey would like to speak.
Yes, Lee.
Thank you, Chair. Could I just come back with a couple of questions to William? Firstly, thanks for the report. Read it with great interest. Lots of great detail in there. Could I just ask you for a little bit of clarity on the final page, where you note that, and if you've got it in front of you, I'm looking at the third paragraph from the bottom of page 6 of the report. It says, continue to be recommended that an ongoing marine safety plan be developed on behalf of and approved by the Harbours Committee. I think the key words there, as required by the PMSC, and yet in the next paragraph down, you note that, in your opinion, we're fully compliant with the requirements of the PMSC. Is there not something there which is outstanding, or have I just missed some subtlety there?
I think what is required is a very specific approval of the marine safety plan by the committee. So there is a safety plan, and really everything you'll talk about today is your plan. I notice, item 11 today is the forward plan for the harbours, but I would just like to ensure that port marine safety is included in that plan, and that Jamie and James have a time frame plan to work to, particularly considering navigation and port marine safety beyond the wider harbour aspect. So it's not that it doesn't exist at all, but I think it's an improvement opportunity there. And I particularly like you as the committee to own that plan and adopt it and be held accountable for that plan. Although of course the harbour master will do all the work.
Okay, thanks. Could I just pick up on that point as well? That was my second question for you. You note that it needs to be approved by the Harbours Committee. And again, I'm really being slightly pedantic, I suspect, but do we mean the Harbours Committee because it's a democratic process, or do we mean the duty holder through the Harbours Committee? That puts a slightly different complexion on it as the route we take.
Well, apologies, that's probably my terminology, but I mean the duty holder.
Thank you.
Yeah, and if I can just chip it, I will be asking for a proposal and a seconder and a vote of approval that we send the letter after we finish this part of the process. So I think that I think that there is a comment, William, you've made about the pilot boat and the Melway being less than satisfactory, and I think Jamie may well cover something towards that in his report. But I just wanted to highlight that we're not ignoring that area because it could be a concern.
Indeed, Chair. I did note that one of the new procedures I mentioned was to cope with that situation. So it's not as if there's a problem that's been ignored, there's a problem that has been dealt with. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I think, Jamie, would you like to chip in now on that one?
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. Yeah, I thought I might just cover it in this section. Yeah, the Marine Safety Management Plan that we sent over to Will to have a look at does include the fact that we're just about to sign an agreement with Portland Port to use their pilot vessels in substitution for Melway. So that agreement will shortly be signed.
Thank you for that. That's very good news. Any other comments from any colleagues on the committee? Do we have any comments?
Cannot see anybody, Chair.
Thank you. Well, I would like to propose to the committee that we send the statement on the Port Marine Safety Code compliance to the MCA. Do I have a seconder for that?
Sir, as Vice Chair, I'm happy to second that for you.
And can we take it that if anyone is not in favour, they let me know. Otherwise, I'll take it that we are all in favour. Ken, did you want a word?
Yes, Chair. The other part of the report follows on from comments that were made at the last committee meeting, and that was around about safety assessment around other aspects of the harbour which don't relate to the role of the designated person. Before moving on, I just wondered if there was any comments from any of the committee members regarding the appendices that were attached to the report that relate to the health and safety aspect of the report.
I'll take guidance. Should we perhaps wait for the I'll withdraw that proposal maybe until after Kelly has done the report on health and safety, and then do it at the end of this section. I think probably that sounds like it would be more appropriate. Okay, we'll thank you, Rob, for seconding, but we'll just defer that one slightly. I think Jim Clark has got a hand up.
Yeah, just very briefly, Chairman, I think it's worth recording our congratulations to all three harbours. I think I counted 17 examples of good practice in the document that's just been presented to us, which I think is quite a commendation to all three harbour masters in their running of the harbours.
I think we would all echo that, Jim, and thank you for raising it, and we will minute that. Our congratulations to all the teams involved. But if there's no more specific questions for William Heaps, our designated person, perhaps we can move on now to Kelly, who will present the Dorset Council Health and Safety Report.
Good morning. Yes, thank you very much. As William said, all of the harbour staff have been extremely cooperative during our visits to the harbours. We got involved last year, which is an area that's new to us, actually. We're carrying out audits. So the harbours has been something we've been learning about as we've been going, and Jamie and James have been absolutely fantastic in helping us out. So we were keen to understand the way they work and the processes they have in place to ensure that work is carried out in a safe manner, not only to protect their workers, but also contractors and members of the public to some degree. The harbours are a unique working environment and an area which is new to us. Jamie and James have been really open with their working practices, and we've been closely working with them to suggest improvements. It was evident to us, especially when going into Weymouth and Jamie being new, he's put a lot of procedures in place, which I think are quite new to Weymouth. He had all the information that we needed to be able to carry out our audit efficiently. And we were really impressed, actually, with a lot of the procedures that he's put in place. In particular with their control of contractors. I know this can be a difficult subject for some areas, but he's got a handle on how to check his contractors are competent and able to carry out the jobs they've got for any external works they might be carrying out around the harbours. So they would be checking things like their RAMs, their risk assessments, method statements, that they've got the competencies and they're able to carry out the work safely. We know that there are some work that are going to be carried out to both of the shed areas in Weymouth and Lyme. They're having some improvements made, so which will help them a great deal. We're going to be going back to Lyme Regis once this has happened, and also Weymouth when they've made the changes. Let's look. We've seen some improvements around the cosh storage at Bridport that's carried out, and Lyme. We were really happy with the risk assessments that they've got. Just recommend that they continue to review these, and we would like to see them on possibly a more centralised system. So it's been mentioned before, but that the three harbours work closer together. I know that they've started doing that since Jamie has started, but we'd like to see them work as a team and share information and good practices. You know, the harbours have got a lot of common practices that they can share knowledge and understanding. Jamie's brought a lot of ideas in with him and can share these with James. We were impressed with the support that Jamie's got at the Weymouth offices in terms of his staff and their knowledge and their understanding with carrying out risk assessments. He's able to delegate work to others around him to be able to support him, which is really fundamental in having a good working team. Things are slightly more stretched, we felt, for James over at Lyme and Bridport. Possibly could do with some more support. I don't know whether you would agree there, James, with helping you get your documentation in place and maybe a bit more of an online system, checking things like contractors, which will come in time. We carried out some training for the Lyme and Bridport team prior to Christmas, some very basics in health and safety with regard to managing cosh, carrying out some risk assessments, some fire guidance. And we've offered this support to Weymouth as well, so we could go back there. My colleague Stuart, our senior safety consultant, has since returned to Lyme and had a look through some additional reviews of their risk assessments. And I think he's going back again soon when there's some work going on, because of COVID. There's some restrictions. There wasn't an awful lot going on during our visits, so we would like to return and see some contractors on site and some employees working. But yeah, overall we were really impressed. There's lots of improvements that will be continually going, but we were really happy at both harbours. Yeah, we were really impressed. Welcome any questions.
Thank you very much, Kelly. That's very comprehensive, and it's very heartening to hear both about how compliant we are, but how you can assist with the future compliance and best practice. Are there any questions? I see Jamie's got a hand up. I don't know whether that's a new hand, Jamie.
I think it's an old one, Chair.
Sorry. Are there any questions on? And it's really encouraging for us, I think, as duty holders, to know how well the teams are doing, and we are of course there to offer any support that we can as duty holders. Should any recommendations that you continue to make to us, we will then ensure that that is put into practice. William, would you like to come in on this?
I would just like to make a comment from my chair that I'm really heartened to hear that Kelly has been making extremely similar observations to my own on the land side, and that both land side and water side are progressing in the same direction together, in the right direction. And it's really interesting to hear that report.
Yeah, I was really impressed. I'm relatively new to the council, so I come from the mines and quarries on Portland, where obviously it's a very high risk working environment, and I apply those measures really to the harbours. It is a high risk working environment. It is a unique place to work, and I've been really impressed. So yeah, really give yourselves a pat on the back.
Thank you. And I'm very, very encouraged because, in our role, we are not the experts, but we are accountable. So we do rely on your good work and on William's work. But most importantly, we rely on the harbour teams to ensure that it is safe working, and it's enormously encouraging. And so thanks to all of them and for you, and I hope we continue to improve. Are there any other questions from members to Kelly?
I can't see any, Chair.
No. Well, if not, we'll now, if I can ask, I'll propose again that we, the duty holder, i.e. the committee, approves that we should sign and send the statement to the MCA confirming our Port Marine Safety Code compliance before the 31st of March. So, Rob, are you happy to second again?
I'm very happy to second again, Chair.
And I will ask again, I will take it that the committee are happy to approve this unless I hear that someone wants to either vote against or abstain. So I think that looks like we're all in agreement, and I think that's it's very heartening to hear how well we continue and how we keep improving. I think that's probably an approach before the Harbour Master updates, which I think will be quite comprehensive. I think it might be appropriate just now to have a quick 5-minute break if everyone's happy with that. And it's 11:08, so if we can keep it to 5 minutes and return at around just before 11:15, I think that would be very satisfactory. So thank you all so far, and thanks to all the officer reports so far, and we'll resume in about 5 minutes. Thank you.
Digestives can't beat them.
I think we're almost there. I'll give it another minute or two to ensure that everybody is back. As we said, 1:15. And I do note that our cabinet member, Ray Bryan, has had to leave for a meeting in his role with the police re-COVID, so he will join us again when he can. Right, well, it's 11:15, so we'll resume the meeting, and welcome back to everybody. We'll start now on item 9, which is the Harbour Master updates, and we'll ask Jamie Joyce, the Weymouth Harbour Master, to present first. So over to you, Jamie.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to present the report for Weymouth Harbour and start off with an overview of the statistics as of 31st of January. There's been a reduction in the number of visitor nights and the general movement of vessels, and that's resulting in less bridge openings due to the COVID restrictions that we've experienced. However, this has been countered financially by an increase in slipway and personal watercraft permits when the restrictions have lifted during this time, along with the reduction in seasonal staff requirements during the lockdown periods. The future looks positive. We've got 2 commercial vessels and 26 annual berth holders joining us in April. That's ranging from jet skis to 14-metre vessels. And there are also a significant number of inquiries still being progressed through the mooring systems, which will eventually increase these numbers. Just moving on to the Port Marine Safety Code, and following the last Port Marine Safety Code by our designated person, Will, we've addressed a number of items. One of those has been covered by Will by the creation of an automated incident management system, and that does allow our customers and commercial users to send us incidents and defects to the berthing team 24 hours a day and allow us to action those very quickly. Following on, we've also updated and we've now hosting online the contractor management system. And as Kelly touched upon before, it just allows our contractors to apply for permits and understand that they do need to give us task, risk and method statements so that we can review those before any work commences to make sure that everything is safe and conducted in the right manner. And I can confirm that we now have completed the agreed scope of works identified in the commercial area of Custom House Quay by ordering and placement of educational signage and information around the harbour to alert pedestrians walking through that area to be vigilant of all the hazards associated with commercial area activities. One incident of note during the period is the response of the harbour team to a sailing vessel requiring assistance that lost power and was drifting towards a stone pier near to the entrance to the harbour. The harbour patrol vessel was deployed and immediately rendered assistance through rafting the vessel and towing it from a place of danger to a safe berth. So commendation to all the team members involved in that operation. As our designated person Will alluded to, we've completed a formal risk assessment in January, and that was a collective harbour team approach. We did identify the conflict of various water users, especially within the Bowleys Cove area, was considered one of the highest risks. Therefore, we consulted with organisations, including the RNLI, Personal Watercraft Partnership, Maritime Police, and other prominent land and stakeholders. And the objective of that consultation really was to provide opportunities for Weymouth Bay users to enjoy themselves without risking the safety and enjoyment of others. So with the remit to reduce the risks to as low as reasonable possible, the Bowleys area Cove will now be reclassified from the 1st of April to a non-motorised vessel zone, so that activities such as paddleboarding and kayaking may take place without the risk posed of motorised vessels operating in the area. This, in combination with the speed limit within the white buoys, will also be reduced to 4 knots, and the buoys are approximately 400 metres off the metropolitan shoreline, and that will now be in place for 12 months, the whole year, irrespective of whether the white buoys are in place. And this is important to us, especially in this area, because it's a necessity to keep a good lookout for other vessels, hazards, and particularly swimmers who may be hidden from view by waves and swell. So to facilitate those changes, we have contacted the UK Hydrographic Office, and we are in the current process of changing the signage across the foreshore area and including nationally recognised personal watercraft endorsed signage at the Weymouth Harbour slipway. And to create more facilities for our personal watercraft, a number of changes have been implemented to facilitate the ease of use, and that now includes online payments for the slipway, for trailer parking, and for the Weymouth Bay water activity permits. And included in that price will now be the use of the facilities at the Harbour office. And we're currently in the process of improving and marking out the trailer car park so that improves the safety and will also maximise the number of spaces available at that location. And all that information will be sent out next week to our database of Weymouth Bay users and also updated through the notice to mariners as well. Moving on to open port duties. During this period, we have been subject to lockdown, and this has meant that we have not been able to accept visitor requests. However, commercial vessels have continued to operate subject to their essential work criteria. Going through to Conservancy, we completed some plough dredging through Jenkins Marine. That was conducted at relatively short notice, and that was to rectify the concrete spillage from Wall D and that was conducted on 24th of February. And this was successful in returning the levels to their original depths. And on the lines of Conservancy, we also had a visit from Trinity House, who regarded that our operation of lit navigation aids was compliant with their current code. With regards to environmental duty, we audited all of our oil spill equipment in January, and that has been redeployed throughout the harbour to ensure that we have a rapid response to any incident we may face. The annual oil spill exercise returns were returned to the MCA, and these have been acknowledged as being in accordance with the requirements. And currently we have 10 members of staff trained as first responders and myself as an on-scene commander. And as we've spoken about in the questions, the Port Waste Management Plan has further been enhanced by entering into agreement with Odyssey Recycling to provide a collection service for our old nets and hard plastic. As Andy has said, my thanks as well, particularly to Mary Harris and the Harbour team to form the new Weymouth Harbour Watch Community Group. And this is supported by the Dorset Marine Police as well. And the aim of that group is to inform and increase the security awareness of the harbour community. And I'm looking forward to working with that team to reach those objectives. Whether last month's storm Our only casualty was the wooden steps leading from the stone pier. Unfortunately, they washed out to sea and drifted into Weymouth Bay, where they were recovered by the harbour team. Steps are currently in the commercial area, having remedial works conducted. And once the integrity is ensured, we will look to be replacing that at the earliest opportunity. The harbour works on the peninsula, work continues to demolish the old ferry terminals, and this site has effectively been handed over to our contractors now. And the commercial team staff are being or have been relocated to Building D, which is the old Providore store. And commercial vessel access has been maintained along the whole process and will be during the current works. The projects around the harbour, as the chairman alluded to, we were successful in our bid to the European Maritime and Fisheries Fund, and that was for the provision of both light and electric bollards to the commercial road pontoons. And I acknowledge the extreme hard work harbour team, Martin Sutcliffe from the Dorset Aquaculture and Fisheries Development Team in helping to secure this fund. And this will improve the safety for the commercial operators berthed at this location. That project is currently underway and is due to be completed at the end of this week. And then we just need SSE to come in and complete the utility connection for us. And I can also advise that the light and electric bollards will be installed at the Cove commercial pontoons to service the commercial operators at this location, and that will be conducted at the end of this month. Moving on to the RNLI, as Andy would attest to, the new modifications to their boat shed there is a 1 metre extension to the length of the building, new slipway roller door that's been put in place, and this has all been or come about to facilitate accommodating their new ILB, which is an Atlantic 85. We're looking forward to seeing that in action around the harbour. The Weymouth Sailing Club project, and that was to improve their ageing infrastructure in front of the Sailing Club. The Sailing Club has been issued with an environmental agency permit, and we are at the final stages of the MMO permit, which has been drafted, and we would expect those works to commence after the 19th of April, and that's for a EA permit issue to allow the sea trout smolt to migrate. Following completion of that works, it will represent a significant enhancement and improvement to the safe access of that facility. So the Weymouth Harbour Revision Order, that came into force on the 17th of February, and we have begun work on defining a set of general directions, and that really is to modernise the power of the statutory harbour, and we'll have these ready for discussion shortly. One of the issues that we spoke about last time was the asset management plan, and I firstly have to acknowledge the assistance of both Nick Thornley and Claire Connolly from the harbour team in reviewing the current asset management plan. And we have begun to formulate a comprehensive and up-to-date assessment of our assets and also our maintenance requirements as well. So we aim to implement this plan at the beginning of the new financial year, and the format is designed to become an effective decision-making tool for projects by comparing budgets, requirements, and the staff time for each project. So the projects will be split into two groups. The first entitled Normal Harbour Operations, i.e. the harbour vessels, the navigation aids, and then a second group, Group B, which will be entitled to Improve Service to Customers and the Maintenance of Service to Customers. Assets can be categorised within both groups and will assist us in prioritising those works. We aim to have further categories of procurement to determine the level of staff input, and also that of funding to identify funds available, whether they come from reserves or there is an external need, and the timelines to assist in spreading the cost of larger projects over a longer period of time. Following the establishment of the Harbour Strategic Plan, we will review the asset management plan to ensure that it meets the objective of that strategy. Moving on to events. Although most events were cancelled due to restrictions, we were able to host the filming by Sky Television of A League of Their Own. There was excellent collaborations between harbour staff, local charter operations and the film company in achieving local operators to support and facilitate this filming. And just like to advise that there's been a provisional booking in June from the cruise vessel Golden Horizon. They are intending to anchor in the bay and tender approximately 200 passengers into Weymouth Harbour. This will all be subject to the COVID regulations of the time, but represents a welcome boost to tourism for ourselves. Thank you, Chairman, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, and what a very comprehensive report. And it's a delight to see how much is going on and how you've come into the role running, and long may it continue. Have we any observations or comments from any of the Harbour Committee? I think everybody is digesting this very comprehensive report, but it's excellent. And things like the news on the maritime funding were, because that's long been requested by the consultative committee. So delighted. We see a few questions coming in. I think Lee Hardy was first that I saw. So Lee.
Sorry, Jamie, fiddling with buttons here, trying to get sound and vision working. You mentioned Golden Horizon. Is that the big sailing ship, the big sort of three-master sailing ship? Is that the one we're talking about?
Yeah, very luxurious three-masted sailing ship, yes.
That's quite a coup to get that coming here, isn't it?
Yeah, and long may that continue.
Yeah.
Yes.
Potentially some great PR opportunities there. Sorry, observation rather than question. I'll shut up.
No, that's absolutely fine. I wasn't aware that it was that, but that's really wonderful news. Thank you for that, Lee. Will, you've got a question. Will Elwood, yes.
Thanks, Mark. I was just wanted to ask, or just find out from Jamie if there's any complications on pilotage for offloading off cruise ships and stuff coming into the harbour with numbers of passengers or anything, or is it quite straightforward?
Yeah, it's fairly straightforward with this. It's category D waters over that period of time. So what we'll be looking to do is get a safe route in for those, a passage plan produced by the cruise vessel itself to tender the guys in. And once we've approved that passage plan, then we'll have a look at what operations they're doing, if they require pilotage or not.
Fantastic. Well done. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Will. Rob Hughes.
Yes, Chair, thank you. Jamie, I'd just like to say well done on closing the area at Bowley's Cove to jet skis. I think it was an excellent safety issue that's been dealt with. I've used that area of the beach myself in the past, and I fully understand the risk to swimmers and kayakers by these vessels in that area. So I fully support the closure of that area of the beach. And if we could just keep them away from Chesil Beach, I'll be very happy.
Thank you.
Yes, I think there's a slight diving interest coming to the fore there. Thanks, Rob. Are there any other points on this comprehensive and very well presented report? If not, we'll now move on to James Radcliffe, who's going to present for both West Bay and Lyme Regis. So over to you, James.
Thank you, Chair. So these stats for Bridport and Lyme, from last reporting, they're launching single launches and season tickets and visiting boats. The numbers haven't changed from the last committee. The boat lifts for both harbours are slightly down. This is due to some of the mooring holders not actually returning to their moorings this year. There was a handful of both harbours that didn't go back in. So the quayside parking, and the shop, even though the figures are down to this time last year, they're still providing us a good return. The diving airfields at Bridport, it's slightly down, but it's been well used by the commercial scallop divers, which has managed to keep it going through all the lockdowns. Boat repairs mechanic, slightly down, where a lot of people haven't been going to sea, and with the lockdowns, people haven't been doing the maintenance on their vessels. Even though the inquiries now are picking up, and he's quite a busy chap at the moment. So our private moorings in both harbours, there's been quite a few relinquishments at both harbours, but these are quickly being refilled by the waiting list, and we're managing to get through to most people on the waiting list to replenish these moorings. Commercial moorings at both harbours remain at capacity. So moving on to our harbour works, the Harbour Masters and Fishermen's Storage Building at Lyme Regis, quotes are still being chased for this, and a lot of people, contractors, are blaming COVID for not being able to get the prices in for us. But we're still working on it, and we're working closely with the Blue Marine Foundation to assist and accommodate the fishermen as well. The slipway extension and repairs at Lyme Regis, a section of the repairs have already been completed. So this has taken away the safety concerns of where there was a drop at the bottom of the slipway, where the harbour bed levels are reduced. And the extension is due to start this week, which is making a platform for the storage of the tenders. And that's hoped to be completed within the next 3 weeks. There's an application in for the change of use of the part of the office at Lyme Regis to turn it into a shop, to make it the same as what's happening at Bridport. And we're waiting for a committee date decision for this. The dredging at Lyme Regis is due to start early April, and weather permitting, it should be the 6th of April, but we're waiting for confirmation from the contractors being able to get into the country. Okay. The timber piling at Bridport has been delayed this month, and we're either hoping that there may be a chance in April. If not, this will be postponed to the end of next season. The timber piling is more a decorative works rather than structural, so the delay won't cause any issues. The Divers Air Station at Bridport, we've now got, as reported before, the planning permission is in place, and we now have the funding in place from contingencies to be able to progress this. So quotes are being sought to build the building, and a timescale getting put in place to when it's going to be best to do so. It will probably be more than likely now at the end of the season, ready for the following year. As Jamie mentioned, with both Bridport and Lyme, we're also in partnership with Odyssey Recycling. So we will be collecting all the recycled fishing gear, hard plastics, fishing nets, and any unused stuff that we can recycle through them. The pontoon anchor system, so following the dredging at Lyme Regis, the new pontoon anchor system should be put in place, hopefully making it more secure for the pontoons and making them more stable than what they have been in the past. No accidents or incidents to report, and most of the events, unfortunately, last year were cancelled due to COVID, with the exception of the powerboat event that managed to run during when the lockdowns were lifted. Bookings are coming in for this year for most of the events. Unfortunately, some have already started to cancel. And that's it for Bridport and Lyme.
Thank you very much, James. I would just like to clarify on where you talked about the planning application for the Harbour office and chandlery shop. where it says it's gone to committee, that of course is Development Control Planning Committee, not this committee, just in case our independent members were wondering why it hadn't come up on our agenda. But it's a planning committee, not the Harbours Committee for that decision.
That's correct.
Councillor Gray, David, you've got a comment.
Yes, thank you, Chair. One apology, one question, and one observation, really. Apologies that I didn't ask this question during the finance bits, but I was finding it hard to read two screens. My question is for James, really. James, could you just comment, because I think I'm reading it right. It's going to sound like I'm obsessed with dredging, but can you comment on the overspend at both harbours for the dredging, what it is, and because it's hard to read in the accounts, and I would suggest that my suggestion, Chair, would be that if we have established a line in the accounts for a reserve for dredging, we should separate the spend on reserve above the line. It's hard to read it in services, in the services. If we can establish from a good accountancy point of view that we are spending money purely on dredging, and then the reserve, we can compare that on an ongoing basis. Just good practice, really. But the question, James, is around the overspend and why it's so much overspent.
So for Bridport, there was the dredging budget that we have of 25,000 is for the inner harbour, or is supposed to be allocated for the inner harbour. The outer harbour was always previously dredged by the Environment Agency, and it was done as a beach replenishment scheme. That once they did the works at West Bay 2 years ago, that supply of fund was stopped. So the cost has come back to the council. So we have had money from contingency to fund it, but it hasn't been enough previously to cover the full cost. The full cost has been more than what was expected. So for Lyme, it's done as a beach management plan. So it's replenishing the beach, and that is funded by the Environment Agency. So there shouldn't be an overspend as such as Lyme on this year's dredging.
Brilliant. That's just good practice for us when we're establishing a reserve for Weymouth Harbour. We should take that into account and make sure that we've captured all the costs. Thank you.
Yes, I think that's a, a well noted point about perhaps separating or making it easier to understand the figures on the dredging. And I think the Environment Agency withdrawal of funds, because they consider the £9 million they put in at West Bay for the beach defences, means they should no longer need to replenish. So unfortunately, the dredging, which they then put on the beaches, they're no longer funding. We have to fund it ourselves. Sarah Williams, Councillor Sarah, you've got a question.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. James, regarding events, I understand that there is an event, a powerboat event arranged potentially for May. Is that going ahead?
Yes, as far as I know, it's scheduled for May. Paperwork and all their documentation still has to go to SAG to be approved, but at the moment it is booked in. Obviously, COVID and everything dependent.
Yeah, thank you. I was just sort of, you said most of the council. I just wondered what was going on with events. Have we got anything else that's going through SAG at the moment down there?
The West Bay Triathlon for June, I think it's June, is going through SAG at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that, Sarah. And I'm also delighted to note that we're working very closely with Lyme Regis Town Council, and we seem to be working in agreement with them on the developments we're doing at Lyme Regis, because I know they did have some concerns early on, and I think they're quite happy with everything and the way it's progressing now, which is always good to work in tandem with our local councils. Okay, if there's no further questions, thank you both Harbour Masters for very comprehensive reports, and it's good to learn that we are managing the situation as well as we can, and it's not, we look forward, I think, now to I think light at the end of the tunnel is the wrong word in a maritime situation, but we are looking forward to a programme of opening up and the harbours being used more fully as we progress through the summer. I'd now like to move on to item 10, which is the Matthew Penny is going to present the engineering update. So over to Matt.
Thanks very much, Chair. Yes, I'm going to update the committee on the flooding, coastal erosion risk management matters which the engineers have been undertaking. That generally relates to maintenance and capital renewal of infrastructure around the harbours. So if I start in alphabetical order at Lyme, the dredging and inspections, asset inspections for the harbour has been undertaken and they're being programmed in for this current year. No significant concerns have been raised. Repairs wise, minor repairs to the cob surface, which to be honest is an ongoing issue. I'm sure most that are aware of the structure understand that it's being an old structure, it needs continual repair to the surface. The Lyme Regis Environmental Improvement Scheme Phase 5, which is the capital repair works to the cob structure itself, is underway. It's in development. We've undertaken a review of the designs that were proposed a couple of years ago because the scheme was on hold for a period of time, mainly around the formation of Dorset Council. We are proposing some minor changes to one or two elements that will require sort of discussions with the portfolio holders and senior council staff just to get that approval. At the moment we're looking to commission or work with our consulting engineering advisors to take through an outline business case to the Environment Agency to get funding for the construction element of the scheme. That's programmed to start in autumn 2022, we should hopefully hear about whether we're successful with the funding bid this summer. So if I move on to West Bay, again very much with the dredging inspections, again looking to program them for this year. No significant concerns other than the repair listed there, which we're investigating, which is around the walkways, and we're noticing some settlement and even some subsidence in one or two of the buildings. I think relates to the toilets around the harbour. So we're investigating those at the moment, and we hope to have a report back from our specialist contractors in the next month or so. On to Weymouth Harbour. We've undertaken inspections of the harbour, and just wanted to note that we've introduced use of drone footage for inaccessible areas of the walls. So following on from reports of Kelly's report, health and safety, etc. The use of drones is something we're going to incorporate more and more, I think, into those areas where it's actually harder to get to, and therefore reducing risk to staff carrying out that work. The resolution you can get from drones is fantastic. So for visual inspection terms, it's very useful indeed. Regards to capital renewal, remedial works around the harbour, I've included here about Weymouth Harbour and Esplanade flooding coastal risk management scheme. That relates to the aforementioned strategy for the Harbour and Esplanade, which was agreed to by Cabinet in November. November this year, and the strategy documents there that provide a link for the members and the public should they want to learn more about it. But it will have an impact upon the harbour in future years. Construction is due to start in 2025, in approximately 2025, and we're going to be developing the scheme up to that point. It's a comprehensive scheme that centres around quay wall replacement and raising for flood defence purposes as well. We'll be in constant contact with not only the harbour team but also engagement with public and harbour users during that process, moving towards construction and indeed during construction as well. So my intention is to sort of keep the committee updated on that, the progress of that scheme. Harbour Wall D, we're really ticking off those very minor defects now. We have a couple remaining. One of them's held up by COVID because we need the provider from Norway to be able to come and advise us. So that won't be happening anytime soon, which relates to paint delamination of the piles, but it's not affecting their structural integrity, so we're not too concerned at this point. And the ferry steps lighting is being trialled at this moment. We're working with Jamie and his team on that, and we think we've come to a good solution. We found a good solution to that, and we're going to make a permanent installation hopefully in the next month or two. We'll see, which is on the North Parade side, on the southern side of the harbour, the site investigation works that were undertaken within the last month or so were actually very successful. Minimal disruption, I think, along the North Parade. It was shut to vehicular traffic for a time, but pedestrian access was always maintained, and we obviously consulted with the local residents and business owners along there. We feel we've got a good, we've got adequate information now to take forward a repair option for the wall, which will extend its life, and thereby its renewal can then be incorporated within the larger scheme which I mentioned earlier on, thereby providing efficiencies. Walls EN9, which is on the peninsula, is part of the Weymouth Quay Regeneration Scheme. The FSERM engineering team had to put forward a design for that and have managed that element, and that design is now incorporated within the construction element of that scheme, and will be taken forward by the project team for the Quay Regen project. And Walls F&G, which again on the peninsula, they are being monitored, or we're undertaking ongoing monitoring due to their condition, and we are we're in the process of procuring a provider to give us some expert advice on that. We undertake the monitoring, and we're just looking for a bit more advice regarding those walls in particular. Also put down Portland Harbour here. Obviously, it's not managed by ourselves, but we are put it down at the request of the chair so that we can highlight that we are carrying out works around the perimeter, if you like, on the coastline of Portland Harbour, on the northwest shore there. We've recently been successful in bidding for £170,000 in order to carry out an extensive 5-year monitoring study of the coastal slope. That will help us to inform whether any future intervention may or may not be required, and it will give us good evidence for that. So thank you, Chair. And is there any questions the committee have?
Thank you very much. It's a very comprehensive, and I would like to thank you for putting the very clear map in the report. It's a great help when there's so many different parts of the harbour walls. It's really helpful to be able to refer to that. So thank you for that, Matt. Any questions from any of the committee? Yeah, you mentioned about the Portland one at my request. I just felt it was useful for an update because not all of our residents realise the difference between the harbours, and so we get questions about different bits that aren't directly related to us. So it's really for clarification. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, not a problem. I'll keep updating the committee on that in future. I'll keep that in. Yeah. Yeah,
and I've just had a note that Councillor Louis O'Leary unfortunately has to go from the meeting. He's got a ward issue coming up. So thank you, Louis, for your participation so far. If there's no further questions on that extremely comprehensive report, and we look forward to all the works, I now will move on to item 11. So we welcome Ken Buchan for the forward plan. Over to you, Ken.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Yes, at the last meeting, there was a couple of items that were requested to be added to the forward plan. One was the outcome of the health and safety assessments of the harbours, which has been covered today. The other was around the progress on the review of the Weymouth asset management plan and the impact on future finances. So that has been added to the forward plan for the June meeting. So over and above the standing items that would normally be coming to committee, for June we have the draft harbours strategy for agreement prior to public consultation on that. We have the review, as I've just mentioned, of the asset management plan, and then normally at the June meeting there would be a discussion about the outturn of the accounts for this financial year. That would happen at the June meeting. Going into September, the final draft of the harbour strategy for approval, and as William mentioned earlier on, there may be an opportunity for us to bring a report on the safety management system and have more of a discussion in committee about that. And then moving forward into December, we get back into the cycle of scale of charges and budgets, budget setting for next year. So that's it really, Chairman. And if there are any other items, please inform the Chairman, and we'll see if we can schedule them in for the future plan.
Thank you very much. And I think Kate is leaving us. So thank you, Kate, for attending and asking those very pertinent questions. Any members of the committee got any comments? Yes, I see that Jim Clark would like to come in. Jim.
I would just suggest 3 possible additional items. I don't think any of them are urgent, but I would have anticipated them being useful during the next 12 months. One is some sort of formal review of external funding opportunities. I think it's always useful to know what is changing in the external environment, and as we become more dependent on external funding, we shouldn't miss opportunities for the sake of awareness. The second item could be a component of that first item. I think we've lost Brexit somewhat in the context of COVID, and I think it would be useful to just do, from a harbour perspective, and it's some sort of environmental scan of what has changed externally as the consequence of Brexit. If it is just the fishing industry context, then that's perhaps one, as we've heard, that's perhaps one response for harbours, but I suspect there are both opportunities and threats arising out of Brexit that we may have missed. And the third is, particularly in the context of Weymouth, I'm conscious that our 5-year business plan has finished. We don't have anything other than almost a year-to-year plan at the moment. In terms of day-to-day business, I'm not talking about strategy there. So I'm surprised we're not looking at some sort of business plan going forward before the end of this year. That's my opinion.
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah, Ken, I think that all 3 are very useful. I think particularly on the last one, on the business plan, I think the harbour revision order, I think we were possibly waiting for that to come through, because it does materially affect our business plan now that's in position. And but thank you, Jim, for pointing that out. I'm sure it's there on the radar somewhere, but it actually probably needs to be more formally identified. So thank you for that. Ken, did you want to come back on any of those?
No, just thank you for that, Jim, and we'll have a conversation, the Harbour Masters and myself, about how we could take those forward.
Okay, any other points from any of the committee members on the forward plan?
Can't
If
see
not,
anybody's hand up, Chair.
Thank you, Rob. I can't, so thank you very much, Ken. Item 12 is urgent business, and there is no urgent business, and that moves us into exempt business, and there is an exempt matter, and we will need to reconvene, but I do need I think a proposal. I will propose that we move into exempt business. I will need a seconder, and I think the committee to support that, and then we can log off and log back into the exempt item.
Certainly happy to support that, Chair, and seconded. That's Councillor Rob Hughes.
Committee members, are you happy to support that we go into an exempt session now, which will not be publicly recorded, and it will only be to the committee of elected and independent members and the necessary officers? So if everyone's happy with that, I thank everybody for taking part in this morning's meeting. It's gone very comprehensively but very smoothly, and thank you for all the contributions and all the hard work from all our officers and staff at the Harbours for their contributions. So I think with that, thank you. I will now formally close this meeting, and committee and necessary officers, can we log into the exempt section of this, please? Thank you all.